Welcome, everybody, to the Just Add Bourbon podcast. I'm Jimmy Don Kerr.
I'm J.D.
And it is another beautiful Sunday evening here in the hills of Eastern Kentucky. And J.D., I'm not sure if we've got anything to talk about this week.
Man, did anything really go on this week?
Well, did anything happen that was worth talking about? So we're going to jump into, guys. Of course, always we want you guys to comment, be a part of the discussion that J.D. and I are going to have this evening. J.D., just real quick, I want to do a little sports thing. First, our Kentucky Wildcats are back on what it seems the right path right now. They whipped Florida yesterday, but the story that I saw that came out of that was not as much about the fact that we seem to be kind of getting it together now. It's that the whole team kneeled before the game started, and everybody's losing their minds. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion on this hasn't changed at all. You know, I still feel the same way I've always felt. It's a protest. It's a peaceful protest. It's bringing attention to a cause they feel passionate about, and affects many of them, I'm sure. So, I support it 100%. I don't lose my mind over stuff like that. What about you?
Well, my mind hasn't changed either. I don't like it. I will never like it. But I'm not going to stop watching them play. So it's one of those deals where, I kind of told you that was one of the things as we worked through the podcast, really, that I'd kind of changed my mind on was, how people reacted to Colin Kaepernick. Because I don't like it. I'm never going to like it. I'm just not. It's just, I don't agree with it. Not during the national anthem. But I have no right to tell these guys how they should protest. And like I said, I'm not going to stop watching them play. So while I didn't care for it, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I can't tell them how to protest, and I'm not going to stop watching them.
Yeah. So here's one of the things I always found interesting about this thing. Like, people that feel like it's disrespectful to the flag or disrespectful to the anthem, and I just don't understand how really. I know, I think it's more disrespectful to our traditions that we have, but I don't know that it's disrespectful to the flag or the anthem. I think it's disrespectful. We've got this. We've decided as a society, this is what you're supposed to do during the national anthem. You're supposed to stand there and show respect and this, that, and the other. I think what's much more disrespectful, in my opinion, when you go to ball games and people walking into the venues and the national anthem is playing and people don't stop.
Oh, I absolutely think it's disrespectful.
They don't kneel. They don't stand there. I mean, they just keep on about their day. I think that's way, way, way more disrespectful than what taking a knee is.
See, I think it's just as disrespectful. And because it drives me nuts. You and I have sat beside each other at a ball game. And what do we do when they play the national anthem? Both of us always turn, look at the flag, put our hand on our heart, and acknowledge the flag and our country and what a great country it is to live in. I've told you my dad was a patriotic guy and kind of raised me to be patriotic and what the flag stood for. And it was the idea of what that flag stood for more so than the flag itself. Right. And,
absolutely,
here's the thing, you're kneeling in front of a flag. You're playing at the University of Kentucky, probably the best college basketball school in the country, or at least one of the top three. And I don't know. It's really hard to say because I don't feel like I should tell these guys how to protest. But at the same time, I almost feel like saying, look, guys, go live in one of these other countries where, if you kneeled during the anthem, you would probably get your head cut off. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I understand what you're saying. But again, that's one of the great things about America, man, is what's more patriotic? Talk about how great America is all the time, or to say, you know what, we've got problems. Let's realize it. Let's recognize the problems that we have. And here's a way to bring attention to one of the major problems we have, and let's fix it. So I think the second one is way more patriotic than the first one. Than to blindly say, "Oh, we're just great and everything's just great."
No, like I said, I just my mind's not going to change in the fact that I don't like that form of protest. Yeah. Right. It's just that I really kind of changed my mind. I was like, I don't have a right as an American. I don't have a right to judge them for how they choose to protest. And so I'm not going to complain about it. Like I said, I still don't like it necessarily, but at the end of the day, it will not stop me from watching them play basketball. It will not stop me from watching them play football. and they're young. They're doing what they think is right, and that's that's fine.
So I always try to remember, man, how this came about anyway. And then we talked about it on here. Colin Kaepernick didn't start out taking the knee. He started out just sitting on the bench during the national anthem. And a Green Beret or Navy SEAL one messaged him, like, seen him later, talking about he didn't like that. And so Colin Kaepernick actually met with the guy and said, what would you like to see? He said, I'd rather you take a knee. And, so, like, I don't know, man. I guess I just have a problem. I don't understand why people feel like they're disrespectful. I feel like it's been disrespectful to the tradition that we have. I don't feel like it's necessarily disrespectful to our national anthem or our flag. That's just my opinion. But
yeah, and it's fair. Like I said, it's a fair opinion to have, man. You get, like you said, we live in America. We get to have that opinion, right?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of nice. All right, so let's get into the topic of the week. I wanted to hit on that real quick because my Twitter was ablaze yesterday. Right before the game, Jack Pilgrim, who we interviewed on the other side of the glass, made a post, said, I'd hate to be one of those people that said, I'm never watching Kentucky basketball again because they took a knee, and then an hour later got a tweet, Kentucky's up 18. We finally found ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So, and
now is not the time to turn it off.
Yeah. So we're finally starting to find ourselves. All right. So the topic of the week is this. Obviously, what happened earlier in the week, where there was a protest in D.C. for people who were there to support Trump, and who probably feel like the election was stolen in some way, et cetera. And that, I feel like I'm one of these newscasters during the summer when the other protests, there was a mostly peaceful protest. So
I agree with that.
Yeah. And so you had a small group of people, of course, just like in the summer when people started rioting and doing their thing, who rushed the Capitol. You had a lady die there. You had an officer die. And that quickly turned into now calls for impeaching President Trump. So I want to start here because if you don't care, JD, because I want to say this, like, I completely disagreed with what the Senate was doing. Okay. With what Cruz and Hawley and some of the other guys did and standing up. I don't disagree with the fact that they were objecting to an elector, right? That's been done in, I think it was probably the last 3 or 4 presidential elections. There's been people who have objected to an elector. That's not a big deal. What I have a problem with is them leading people to believe that what they were doing there was actually going to change the election results. They had people actually believing that somehow, some way, President Trump was still going to be the president after that day was over. And there's no truth to that. If you want my honest opinion about what Cruz and Hawley were doing, Cruz wants to run for president. They're trying to secure Trump's base so that when they do run, they have stood up and said, okay, the people who believe in Trump and what Trump's done, they've stood up and said, okay, we stood up for you guys. We stood up for Trump, and they can pull that base when they want to run because it's 70 million votes, right? So,
absolutely.
So politically that makes some sense. What they didn't expect was for a bunch of people to take that real serious and rush the Capitol like they were going to, take over and perform a coup of the government so that Trump could continue to be president.
Yeah, it's you're exactly right. I think it's definitely political. They feel like it's political gamesmanship, and this, they are definitely playing to the Trump acolytes. There's no doubt about it. When Cruz does make another run, he wants those votes. Plain and simple. Yeah. There's some of those young senators that stood with Cruz, and they're not dummies, man. I mean, Texas is as red gets, and they always have. I mean, Cruz will probably be a lifetime senator now if he never does run for president again. He just retires as a senator because he stood up for Trump, or he can always say he stood up for Trump. Now, I feel like it was more showmanship than anything. And like you said, though, his problem was his misdirecting and misleading people who don't know better when he absolutely does know better.
Right. And that's the part that I disagree. And it disgusted me because we were arguing, and we have a group text with Eric, and I was just arguing with Eric, I guess, for argument's sake. I didn't really know what had occurred. And then I come home and I'm listening to the radio on the way home, and I get home and I see it. I'm like, oh God, and I actually sent a message to Eric in that group text and said, dude, I'm sorry. I didn't realize what had actually occurred. That's my bad. And I was appalled by what I saw, because I thoroughly believe that protest is fine. There is nothing more American than protest. Nothing.
I agree.
And when that protest turns into violence, and somebody died, dude, a cop died. The party and what I stood up for all summer, well, there was a problem, right? I said, I agreed there was a problem, but I also really support the law enforcement profession. Sure. I mean, those people keep us safe every day, dude. They walk out of their door, they don't know if they're going to live or not. They don't know if they're going to get to come back home.
Right.
And I saw people who supposedly backed that, beating up cops, doing this crazy stuff, dude. And I was disgusted by it. I was like, oh my God. Now, going into the people's house, I felt like, in one sense, I kind of felt like these politicians were insulted because how dare somebody come near them, like they're, the protected, political class. And I kind of, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Sure. What really has rubbed me the wrong way, though, like I said, I think what happened at the Capitol was disgusting. I think Trump was out of line by even talking to that crowd, right? They were protesting, which I listened to what Trump said multiple times, and I didn't necessarily hear him say, let's go storm the Capitol, right? He said, let's go in peace. Let's do this, right? That's what I heard him say. True. I heard Don Jr. and Rudy Giuliani get fired up and say, we may have to go hand-to-hand combat. That's BS. But the double standard to me has been, I haven't like during the summer when the riots were going on. I mean, there were cities burning all over our country, right? In these democratic cities, for a social cause that probably needed some light shined on it, which the protests were doing. I did not like the people that turned to violence, looting, burning, doing those things. It disgusted me, but you did not hear about it on the evening news. You would hear about it a little bit, but then that went away quick. And it is immediately, you heard, they were talking about, I know I'm getting long-winded here, but I'll give you the opportunity to kind of really go here in just a second. Because I just wanted to, I was going back and they were playing these clips of the stuff that Maxine Waters said. Some of the stuff that Hillary Clinton said about getting your congressman's face, attack, do this. Totally out of line. And now, that wasn't that big of a deal, but now they're just killing Trump because of what he said. And I just feel like there's a huge double standard when it comes to that. And that bothers me. I get what was going on in the summer, dude. That was a social issue with the black members of the black population of the United States. And I get it. And their right to protest, I supported 110%. The looting, the burning, all that stuff, I don't support it, and I think it was disgusting. It's just as disgusting as what I saw at that Capitol last week. But what I also find disgusting is the double standard that seems to take place in the media and everywhere else. Even the Democrats are talking out the other side of their mouth right now. Don't they forget all about that stuff that they said? And now this. So I got long-winded there, but you just respond and say whatever you want to that.
So I just feel like there's way different things, man. Even with the looting and the rioting that was going on over the summer, it's a much bigger difference, attacking these private, these people were burning down targets and stuff, which is totally insane. And I never did commend it. I know people I've been accused of commending them for that, which I never did do. I said I totally understand their frustration and why it turned to that. And I do still feel that way. I understand it. I don't condone it at all. I don't think that's a way to move forward productively. But what happened this week was they're trying to overthrow the government, bro, which is a way different thing than what they was doing this summer. And also, the dynamics were just different. Okay. I feel like this summer, these people were protesting against the police. Well, guess who was lining up right across from them and telling them what to do and trying to boss them around and tear gassing them? It was the police. So it's a very, very different dynamic. And there were just so many people involved. It was so so hard to know who was doing what, who was doing the right thing. There was people on the left, of course, saying that these right-wing conservative groups were infiltrating them and setting fires and causing chaos. Is that true? I don't know. But they tried to say the same exact thing about Wednesday night, and we know that's absolutely not true because all those people have been identified in their social media. They went back on their social media. My cousin was arrested. And
he's probably going to be in some trouble, isn't he?
And he had to resign from his House. He just won a House delegates race in West Virginia, and he's had to resign from that already. And so, I think the problem that we've gotten to with Trump and the problem he has now going forward is this is just like we talked about last week with the guy in Nashville who was the conspiracy theorist about the 5Gs. He's going to blow up the building and save people. The 5G people are aliens, whatever. Like that's the end game of that, man. That's the end game of that conspiracy theory about 5G. The same exact thing can be said about what Trump has spewed for 4 years about, how elections are fraudulent, how there's a deep state. Of course, he has shown no evidence of any of that stuff. But the end game of it is our government's corrupt and we've got to stand up against our government. And these people are going to take it very, very serious. And then their lives center around this kind of thing, man. And people that we knew a guy who thought the President Trump was going to be president as late as Sunday last week.
Mm-hmm.
After all that we know, that we still had people believing that Trump was still going to be the president, and we've known for a month now he's not going to be. But what Trump has done is continue to give people false hope, and he knew better. To lie to people and keep them worked up when he knew better. And so that's the problem he has going forward, because this is the end game of those conspiracies, is that people are going to overthrow the government. And they think they're doing their patriotic duty by doing so.
So let me push back just a little bit. And this is more as me much playing devil's advocate as it is anything, okay? So
absolutely.
I agree with most of what you said about the summer, except this. I don't care what the cause is. I don't care what the cause is. You do not burn people's businesses down. You do not, the people in your community, your brothers and sisters, you do not burn their businesses down. You don't hurt them because they're trying to protect their businesses. When you're a politician, you don't say, hey, do whatever you want. We're going to bail you out of jail and raise money to bail them out of jail so they can go back to doing that. And then criticize what's happened here this last week. Now, that's the part, I just don't think violence begets violence, dude. And there's people who went into that Capitol on Wednesday thinking, well, my God, they did it all summer, and nothing happened. And we're going in here and doing this. Now, that's generalizing it in a very big way. Sure. But there are some people out there who probably think that way. Well, they did it all summer, nothing happened. We can go in here and do this. And Trump, doing the right thing when people were destroying monuments and different things, said, hey, it's a 10-year sentence, no questions asked. That's getting ready to come down on the people who supported him, who went into that Capitol and did that. So, I have a real big problem with, them bailing these people out and then now coming back and saying, oh, these are domestic terrorists, they're doing this, when the people who were there, who did what they did, believed just as strongly as those people, right or wrong. I don't think they were right. That's the difference. Is right. What went on this summer was probably, there was a lot to that. Absolutely. And there's something that needs to be done when it comes to our policing, especially in the Black community.
There's a lot of layers to what happened this summer.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. Now, what happened here in Washington last week, those people believed just as strongly that what they were fighting for was right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
And the thing is that's what they believe. So let's kind of switch it over just a tick. So now you've got Pelosi and those guys, and I'm not sure wrongly so, dude. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, I never thought I'd say this, okay? Not out loud anyway, and especially not on our podcast.
Especially not to me.
Especially not to you. That I'm not sure that's the wrong thing, is to seek Trump's impeachment. Okay? I'm not sure it's the wrong thing.
Right.
After, he won't talk to Pence now because Pence simply went in and did his job and did the right thing constitutionally. And then calls him out for And now you've got people that supported Trump now saying kill Mike Pence. That's crazy.
Yeah. So this is the thing, man, that I think we've all that have been anti-Trumpers have seen and recognized for a long time is that he's not about anything else but himself, man. The constitutional commitment that Mike Pence made, his duty, his constitutional duty to, certify the votes doesn't matter to Trump, man. It's about Trump all the time, 24/7. And that's why he's so dangerous. That's why he's so dangerous. He'll do anything. He would burn this nation to the ground, man, if he thought he could get another 4 years in office and keep that power.
So for me, like, I agree. Like, I have always agreed. I never really cared for how Trump acted all the time, but actions speak louder than words to me, because a lot of it was words on Twitter and different things. That part never really bothered me about Trump. I just really like Trump's economic policies, and it's helped my business a great deal over the last really probably 2.5 years.
Okay.
So it's helped me. So I always liked that, but I'm not so sure that the Democrats are wrong in saying that he should be impeached, but I'm not sure they're right either. Because right now, what you have in a very, very big way is you have a divided country, right? And we see it in a big way right now. Absolutely. Would it make sense to you to say, all right, look, we've only got 2 weeks left. We've only got 2 weeks left. Biden's going to be the president. Let's just get through this. Let's not impeach the guy and alienate 70 million people in the country, probably 50 million now, because there's probably 20 million that are like that are like me, and they're just, all right, look, enough's enough. Like, I was all for Trump going through the legal process, because I still believe, JD, that there was something fishy that went on. I still believe that. But a lot of what happened was they would take this evidence to court and the court wouldn't hear it, right? Or they would get in there and Giuliani would say, he'd give this big speech about fraud and how the election was stolen. And then the judge would point blank ask him, are you saying there was widespread fraud? And he would say no. Right. And so like I said, I'm just looking at statistics and things like that, things that I know. And I think there was something fishy happened, but none of that. There's a system in America on how to prove these things, and that is through the court of law. That did not happen. So as bad as I hate it, Joe Biden is going to be our president. He is going to be my president for the next 4 years. No matter how much I dislike it, my guy lost, and it's time to move on.
I mean, I think there's a lot to that. I think, it's well said. The only thing I would push back on is why we should move forward with an impeachment is because that stops Trump from being eligible to run again in 2024. I've
heard that. And like I said, I don't know if that's wrong, dog. I mean, like, I never thought I would say that, because I like Trump, dude, the businessman. Dude, I read a list of accomplishments that he has had, different things that he had done while he's been in office for 4 years. And the guy did a lot, dude. He applied, Middle East peace deals. I mean, the wall where the wall's been built, illegal immigration is down 100% per the ICE department. Like, I mean, there were things that he did economically until COVID happened. We were booming. Like I said, I was booming, and really even through COVID, my stuff hasn't started, hasn't stopped. But go ahead.
No, my point was just saying, I mean, of all of the good things you've seen he's done, man, it's how important it is to have somebody that brings us together, man. Our country, we just cannot exist the way we are right now. It just won't work. Not long term.
But do you think by impeaching him, all you're doing is further dividing those people who think that election was stolen and who believe it 110%, and they think that Pelosi and them are the devil? Don't you think that by impeaching him, they're just going to split us even further?
I mean, very possible. That's a good point to make, really. But we can't take the risk of him getting back in office again, in my opinion, because I don't think we can survive 4 more years of this, especially after the way this election went down and the things he's tried to pull. Who knows what he might try to pull if he gets back in there. And just as a power grab. We know it's not about money. The guy's always had money. Like, it's not money. It's about power for him. It's about dominating everything, being about Trump all the time. The headlines are Trump. And he's a marketing genius. As bad as I hate the guy or don't stand for any of the things that he stands for, he is an absolute genius marketer, because there's not been one day in the last 4 years where I've not said the name Donald Trump. Not one day.
Oh, that's right. No, you're right.
Always talking about him. He's always you ever watch Mean Girls?
Yes.
She's like, I couldn't get her name out of my mouth. That's why I feel drunk. Like, I just want this guy to go away so I can talk about something else.
Right. Well,
I'm also like you. Like, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, like, what are we going to talk about? No, I mean, that's the thing. As far as I personally am just ready to move on. Like, look, he lost the election. They went through the legal avenues. I was totally for that because I thought there was something seemed up. I was totally for going through the legal avenues.
I was too.
We exhausted that. They weren't able to necessarily prove anything. And so it is what it is. It's time to move on. What scares me more, like Biden is pretty middle of the road. Like Biden doesn't really scare me that much. It's that left, that fringe left, because just like what you saw at the Capitol the other day, 99% of the people there were there for the right reason. They support Trump. They wanted it to be known that they support Trump. They wanted the people in politics and in power to know, hey, we support Trump. There's reasons that they do, right? There's legitimate reasons that people got behind Trump so much. And they wanted people to see that. And then you had that 1% who screwed up for everybody and go in and storm the Capitol. Same thing that happened with the protests this past summer. 99% of that was peaceful. And people were doing it for the right reason. You had that 1% who screwed it up for everybody and went and started setting crap on fire and burning buildings down and looting and doing all that stuff. And that's the part to me that I feel like is, what I was saying to Eric that I stood by is you watch how this is portrayed in the media versus what was portrayed last summer. Whether it's right or wrong, the cause is complete. You're right about the cause and the difference between that. I agree with that 120%. That's different. But the way that it's covered, the way that it was, is not. And that's you're going to see who the puppet masters really are, man, because I think all Americans, right and left, need to open their eyes, because most of us agree, JD, like you and I disagree on a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, dude, we want the same things, right? We just want to make a living. We want to be able to take care of our families. We want to be free. We want to, we don't realize how good we got it, dude. We did literally do whatever we want. In other countries, dude, you couldn't get on here and do a podcast like this and say the crap that we're saying.
Absolutely not.
No. And so,
sure.
Yeah. And so I think all Americans need to open their eyes to some of the propaganda. And that kind of leads me into my next, what I wanted to talk about.
Before we go on there, I want to push back on you just a little bit, man.
Go ahead, dude. That's fine. Absolutely.
Things were covered this summer, because I'm going to tell you right now, CNN, they showed those cities burned to the ground all night, every night. But the problem was, man, they were portrayed like, oh, this is so terrible. This is going on. They showed the same 3 places like for 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying, man? Like, it wasn't like all the cities were on fire, but that sells tickets, man. Violence. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to buy a pay-per-view for UFC a lot faster. I'm going to buy a pay-per-view for ballet. I just tell you right now, because violence is a lot better, more entertaining, man. It's just more entertaining.
It is. All right, so let me pop this up here real quick, JD. So it's our boy Jason. Thoughts on Biden's comments after the riot where he made divisive statements instead of a call for unity?
I don't know which one he's talking about. I don't know.
He basically, it was what he was talking about, calling it domestic terrorist. He didn't necessarily call for unity. It basically said what Trump said during the summer when talking about the looters and the rioters. He almost said the exact same thing. Right. And, as far as the way he classified them. And, a lot of people have said, they bashed Trump for that, for the way that he spoke about not the protest, the rioters and the looting.
Sure.
Biden did the exact same thing, but he didn't get crushed for that.
Right. I mean, that's not right. It's not fair. But I still feel like you call a spade no matter what it is. Right. Mm-hmm. So sometimes there's not a call for unity, man. Sometimes you got to call a spade, like I said. You have to call the rioters and the looters, rioters and looters.
But do you see where that could frustrate like me? That's what frustrated me.
I'm sure, yeah.
Because
absolutely.
The other thing that really bothered me, I mean, and I know this is awful, I don't even want to say it out loud, but what really bothered me was I despise, not despise because I don't really care, to be honest with you, but I dislike Pelosi and Schumer, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden, by rushing the Capitol and doing that, we gave them the moral high ground.
Sure.
And that drives me crazy because I think they're the least moral people on the planet. I think politicians are in general, Pelosi, Schumer, Trump, everybody. I think they're the least moral people in the world. And
Right.
all of a sudden we give them the moral high ground. And that just drove me nuts. Let me put James Guess up here. Biden is president. I'm sick of all this. I'm ready to move on and let's give him a chance. I agree. I agree with that
I think
because,
most people feel that way at this point, don't you?
yeah, it is what it is, dude. He won. I don't like that he won, but he won. So now we got to hope that he kills it. Like he friggin' kills it. The economy blows up. We don't have to worry about COVID anymore. We don't have to worry about none of that. I hope he kills it. I hope that he does so good that I'm going to vote Democrat next time.
Me too. I hope he does that good too.
You know, I mean, but you know what I'm saying? If he does that good,
absolutely.
and he brings the country together, he makes peace deals. The economy's rocking. I'm doing good. Look, if he does a good job, I'll vote for him.
Right. Sure.
I'm not opposed. I voted for Obama the first time because I wanted something different than what I had seen out of the Republicans. I wanted something different. I wanted the unity out because you could see even back then, dude, when Obama ran, how divisive things were and how we were getting split. And it is so bad right now. And that's a scary thing, dude, to think that we could ultimately fight against each other at fellow citizens in this country. It's just.
So here, I think this is a perfect segue for what we got to talk about next, man, because I feel like social media drives a ton of this stuff.
Yes.
With all the misinformation out there, all the divisiveness that's out there, I'm guilty of it because let's just face it, I'm kind of an asshole sometimes. But I think it's funny, man. Like I like getting people riled up, and I like people to think. I hope. I know people think I'm a dick, but I really want to people to dig into things that I say. And if I give people pause, then you know what, it's worth it, man. You can think I'm a butthole, but I want you to come back at me and push back on what I believe because I want to know. You know what? At the end of the day, is that ultimately what I believe? And I want to push people to. I want to say some things that are going to get some people's attention, some things that aren't popular. And just to see the reactions, because I want your reaction to be you really looking into this issue and see is this really where I stand on this thing. And so, social media, man, like how much does social media play into all this stuff, Jimmy?
All of it, dude, 100%. Because what it has done is it has given people the ability to say whatever to whoever behind a computer screen with no chance of getting punched in the nose for saying it.
Right.
And you've got like what we call keyboard warriors. Yeah. And people say whatever, dude, to whoever. Like they're so mean to each other on there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they really are. And if you and I were sitting typing on one of these, we're sitting there typing something and we're having an argument under a Twitter post, right? It's going to get a whole lot more confrontational here than it would if you and I were standing in front of each other.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that's true with me and you.
Yeah.
Because we might get after it.
Might be the exception to that.
We might get after it, even if we were standing in front of each other. But most people won't.
No, complete strangers anyway, right?
Yes. Complete strangers.
Like,
yes.
Going at each other, you know.
So let's talk about that. So I think it's 100%. So let's, Twitter has banned Trump permanently.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to see him ban other people. And I am totally against that. All right. I am against it. Because they are private companies, okay? And they do have the right to do whatever they want and have whatever they want on their platform. That is 100% true. But I still don't like the fact that there only seems to be one point of view that's getting shelled. Okay? Only one point of view is getting shelled. And we talk about it a lot that we live in these echo chambers, right? We only see what we agree with. And I feel like that's going further. You're not going to get that divisive point. Like Trump is saying things that are complete BS. I will say right now, taking Trump off right now is probably a good idea.
Right.
But banning other people because they disagree or agree with what Trump's saying and are expressing that, I think is wrong. I think it's a form of censorship. And while those are private companies, those are the mediums that everybody uses to communicate. So they have a little more of a responsibility, in my opinion, of allowing a free flow speech and information to occur.
Well, that's interesting, man, because I agree with a lot of what you said, honestly. But I also disagree with a lot of what you said, that I think banning Trump right now is the right thing to do. I think it's a responsible thing to do, to be quite frank with you. In his state of mind, we have people in his cabinet who are absolutely talking about invoking the 25th Amendment and removing him from office because of his mental capacity. I think Twitter recognizes the weight of a Trump tweet and how influential it is. And the same thing can be said about people who, and I don't think it's a matter of disagreeing with Twitter, Jack Dorsey, or whatever. I think it's a matter of how influential they are and how extreme those tweets can be. And I think it's a matter of I think you said the right word. They have a responsibility, man. And our first responsibility is to make sure that people are being safe and not inciting other people to violence. So I think they also have that responsibility. It's a tough balancing act to have. I really don't think that there's one. I know that the right plays this game that they're the only people being censored. It's not true. The Young Turks were removed off Facebook a couple weeks ago from some of the stuff they tried to post, and they don't get no more liberal than the Young Turks.
Right.
So I think that this ideal that it's just the right wing people being banned or censored, I just don't think it's true. But the problem is I understand also why a lot of right wing people are getting banned and in silence is because they're coming up with all these crazy conspiracies. Man, it's crazy the things they're coming up with. And you know what? They might not be crazy at all, but they can't prove any of the stuff. They're interesting. It's a fun thing to get down these rabbit holes and to chase these conspiracies. But at some point, we got to put those things to bed, man, because you have people showing up at the AT&T building in Nashville with a bomb.
Right. So let me kick back just a tick.
Sure.
So say Twitter was
you see Ryan's comment, by the way.
Yeah, JD's a really good debater. He really is. He's a master debater. What?
I'm also a masturbator.
No.
Okay, let's not take that in.
Yeah, let's not go there.
In high school. I wish there would have been a debate team.
Yeah. So no, JD's a great. He does well at this. So say that you had a site. Here's the problem. Most of these sites are ran by liberal strongholds, right? So it's very clear that Twitter, Facebook, Zuckerberg, Dorsey, Silicon Valley, those places are all very liberal, okay? Socially, and are very liberal. And when if you had a site like that was ran by a conservative group who were conservative socially, and you had Democratic voices on there trying to make their point, trying to spark debate, trying to do those things. Yeah, right here, that's truth right there. Hold on.
Well, the truth is we don't know. We don't know if that's true or not because I've never been home.
Right.
I did that one time when I got married. That was it.
That one time. But no, if somebody was tamping down on the liberal voice, the left voice, whatever, I wouldn't be for that either. Like it is, I think what Trump, his rhetoric, I think you're right. Like I think they 100% probably should have banned him from Twitter for a little while. Let's wait till he's done with being the president, and then let's move on. And he's going to be a disruption either way because he's Trump, right? So he's going to, and he's got a lot of people that back him, and my thing is one person is not more important than our country. Our country and its safety and its traditions and its rules are more important than Trump ever has been.
Absolutely.
But as far as the social media companies are concerned, there's some truth. I mean, look, I'm sitting here debating with myself because there's some truth to what you're saying. Because like I see some things on Facebook that I've had people who I love more than anything quote to me. And I'm like, did you even click on the article and read it? And they were like, no. And I showed it to them. And I was like, here's what this actually says. It was complete nonsense, like just BS nonsense. It was all clickbait.
Yeah.
But they're saying it like it's the gospel. And that's happening on the left and the right. And that's why, like the social media companies, yes, they have a responsibility, but they need to track that crap both ways. And that doesn't seem to be happening to me.
No, but I think it is, though. I think that's, again, going back to, the echo chamber we were talking about, with the social dilemma, is that you're just seeing that all these right-wing guys getting banned.
There's truth to that.
You probably didn't know about the Young Turks getting banned, a couple of weeks ago.
I did know that, actually.
You did?
Yeah.
Well,
I did. Yeah. I follow the Young Turks, man.
I think they're very entertaining if you don't agree with anything they say. But,
I don't agree with nothing they say, but I follow them because it is entertaining. But I also like to hear those extreme viewpoints from both sides.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think that's a proof that, very positive that it's not happening just on one side. But the things, man, that are being put out by the right-wing, supposedly patriotic people are just nuts, man. I mean, there's just no other way to say it.
Well, I think there's a big change going on, JD, in our country. There is a big shift because you've got these younger generation, because you looked at a lot of those people who were at that rally in D.C., and they were a lot of older white people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think you have this younger generation, even our generation, we're kind of in the middle. Like, we kind of get what the older generation's saying, but we also kind of get what the younger generation's saying about things. And so for us, it's hard to – it's really easier for us because we can kind of look at both sides, right?
I feel like we're the bridge, man. We're the bridge.
Yeah, we're the bridge. And so there is definitely a change going on in our country to be more, more inviting and acceptable to all races, creeds, colors. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. And it scares a lot of older people who were raised up in more traditional values. And, I'm pretty traditional in my values. My kids are being raised, or I'm raising them. Wait a minute, hold on. I saw this just pop up, and I got to show it. Hold on, because I believe what Richie's screaming right there. Trump needs to do the right thing and let us know about the aliens. Amen, Richie. Before he goes, he needs to tell us about the aliens.
I think it's going to happen. Honestly, I think he's going to drop one on us if he has a platform to do it with.
Yeah, that's right. He'll get it out there somehow. But no, there's just a change going on that a lot of people are uncomfortable with, especially the older generation, and me myself in some ways, because I was raised very traditionally.
Put Jason's comment up and go ahead and say you finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No, I'm good. I was done.
But I want to address this for a minute. Go ahead.
Okay, we shouldn't have to look at 10 sources for information about the same thing and try to decipher what is legitimate news. Go ahead, JD.
So I made a joke about this about a year ago on this podcast. There used to be a thing. Not only was it a matter of integrity as far as news sources went, but there was also a lot of litigation. I mean, you could get in real trouble for printing things and publishing things that weren't true. Libel, they call it. But what happened? I made a joke about about a year ago on this podcast about Larry Flint, the People versus Larry Flint, and how he was allowed to print things in Hustler magazine, and he ended up winning the case against Jerry Falwell. And ever since then, man, it's been a free for all. The National Geographics. And now, like, if National Geographic was still around, like, are they National Enquirer? I'm sorry, National Enquirer, the Enquirer. You remember?
I think still at the supermarket. I used to look at them all the time.
Yeah. So like now is like the heyday for the Enquirer, man. Like if the Enquirer, I can go through my Facebook right now on my feed and see 10 articles by people that post them and believe them, those stories wholeheartedly, that these Enquirer type stories are just as real as they can be. And when did we get away from holding people accountable for those things? Like, did our government just throw their hands up and said, you know what, we just can't do it, just can't control it? What isn't there supposed to be isn't there laws protecting that?
You would think, man, because I mean, it's a real problem. People do not believe the news anymore.
Right.
Like, and the reason why is because they've spewed a bunch of BS. I mean, for 4 years, whether you agree with it or not, and this is the part, like I was kind of going at Eric the other day. I was like, dude, what did you expect to happen? Because they have gone after Trump for 4 years. From before he was inaugurated, they were talking about impeaching him. So they went after him. You had the Russian thing. The Russian thing turned out to be complete BS on top of BS. The Ukraine thing maybe had some legitimacy to it. As far as the phone call, he definitely made that, but it still didn't rise, in my opinion, of course, we disagreed on that it was an impeachable offense. And they were spewing this stuff like it was the 100% gospel truth. And it turned out not to be. And we know that it was not 100% accurate. But they were putting it out. And a lot of times they wouldn't retract, or if they did retract, it would be a headline story, but they would retract it on page 10. It was just look, hey, every day, Patty, we're all kind of this. Look, I've said more today agreeing with some of the crap JD said that I just can't believe it. So,
Jimmy not sick of himself right now.
I really am. Like, look, because JD said the other night, he was like, "Do you want to come on tonight and talk about this?" And I was like, "No, dude, I need to, I really need to take this in because everything that I had believed, and I was so disappointed in what I saw because I believed that my beliefs were on the moral high ground. I truly believe that look, there is something shady going on with this election. There is, we didn't write even after, said Trump lost, a lot of people expected riots to start right then. That hadn't happened. And I was like, okay, the conservatives are going to take it and go on. If Trump had won, dude, the left would have rioted and done that too. They would have. They had done it.
Very, very possible.
And so that's probably. But I really was. I was almost hurt. Like I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I was like, "Have we gotten here? And did Trump cause all that? And was that the case? Like I've really had to kind of take a look in the mirror and say, like, okay, what do you believe, man? Because I believed in his economic policies, but I 100% believed that we had to move on. And then I thought it was fine to have a protest and a rally in D.C. I thought that was fine. But then say, hey, let's go to the Capitol, let's go in peace. But you had people ready to rock, dude, had pipe bombs and Molotov cocktails. They were going in there. People going in and sitting in Nancy Pelosi's desk and stealing their computers. Are you kidding me?
Here's the thing, man. I want to take my cousin was live on Facebook in the Capitol.
And this dude's a delegate in West Virginia.
He was yesterday.
Yeah.
But he was live on Facebook doing this, man. I mean, maybe he didn't realize what he was doing wrong, but because now, in his defense, now I will say this: I've seen some of the video, and they let him walk right in, man.
They did. They let him walk right through, but I don't think they had a choice.
They didn't have no choice. That's
okay. Let's ask that question because that was the question. Really, it was like, how does this happen?
Exactly.
Like how in one of our most important buildings, the People's House, where there is a debate going on about the electorals to nominate our next president and to get him, certified, so to speak. DC is the capital of protest, dude. Like they know how to handle a protest better than any city in the country because they have to do
right
it
in the Capitol building.
And they walked right in the Capitol building. And they didn't have the National Guard in. They had them on standby. But when they decided it was over and they got the proper police presence there, dude, they shoved them back with the quickness.
Yeah.
Why wasn't that there to begin with?
It should have been. You're absolutely right. And here's what's scary, man, is we just now showed foreign countries how lacking our security is there at the Capitol, which is a very, very big deal, man. Very big deal. So we got to do something, man. We got to get security bumped up. We got to put some money aside for it. It's just got to happen.
I've been in that Capitol.
I feel like there were maybe some Trump supporters that maybe on the police department and stuff like that, and they was like, kind of agreed with what was going on, but they didn't want to be active so they just kind of let it happen. I don't know if that's possible or not.
I don't know. As far have you ever been to the Capitol?
I've not been in the Capitol. I've been to DC. Yeah, I've
been in the Capitol a bunch of times, and for people who don't know this is something that you can do. You can contact Hal Rogers' office, and as a constituent, one of his staff will give you a guided tour of the Capitol building. And you get to see, anybody can do it. And it can also get you tickets to go through the White House, tour the White House.
I want you to tell us everybody you was the president of the water board. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Well, I am. No.
You're in a book.
Yeah, and I'm in a book too. A New York Times bestseller, just FYI. JD still has it, by the way. He hasn't given it back to me.
My bad, bro. You did that. It's all good. I don't have anything on my plate right now. It's fine.
Yeah, right. So I've been to the Capitol multiple times, okay, and been through it, toured it, all that stuff. And the security's heavy. Like, you just can't get through there. Okay, and that's just on a normal day. There's no protests going on. The security's very heavy there. Like, we got stopped. Me and Amy and the girls were getting a tour by one of Roger's staff people, and we got stopped like 10 times. going through that building. What are you all doing here? Had to show our IDs, all these different things that we had to do. And this was before any of this stuff. This has been 4 or 5 years ago. This is before Trump was president. Obama was still president.
Right.
So it was very, very tight. And when you got 100,000 people in D.C. protesting and they're going to come towards the Capitol, my God, you got to lock that thing down.
Right.
And why that didn't happen blows my mind. But you saw it too, though, JD, in the summer protests. The police just stepped back and let people do what they wanted to do because they're going to get hurt.
Right.
Because there were so many people, they would get overrun. And you saw some of that. Like there was one I saw.
Think that's what happened to the cop, right? Is that what happened with the cop? He
just got overran.
Yeah.
And like you saw some, like I had somebody ask me the question. They sent me a video. It was the one black guy that was he actually ended up guiding him away from the chamber, but he reached down and grabbed his baton. And somebody was like, who's filming that? This poor guy's running for his life. Who's filming it?
Right.
Like, did a protester get behind him and is filming it? Or like, who's filming that? So that's the kind of crap that you see that'll get conspiracies going and different things. Is you're like, because really that's a realistic question. Number one, they let them walk by. And number two, while this mob is coming in, somebody's back behind filming the whole thing. Who the hell is doing that?
Yeah, it's crazy. But the thing is, man, everybody's got a camera now. When I was in the National Guard, I actually remember being trained for Y2K. I don't know if you remember Y2K or not.
Oh, God, yeah. I worked at a bank, dude. That was like the whole thing for a year.
So that was supposed to be a big thing. And so we did riot training, one of the things they gave batons, to drive people back with. They say, no, you be careful. Everybody's got a camera in their pocket now. Everybody walks around with a camera all the time. This was 99. So now compare that with 2021. How many people's got a camera in their pocket?
Oh,
almost 100%.
Literally everybody. Let me put this up here, JD. So maybe events are not really relative to politicians until they are directly affected, like what happened. That's real because that's what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, about the mayor, the Chicago lady, what was her name? I can't remember, but she wanted to protect her house, so she used the police force to protect her neighborhood or whatever. And you're right, Jason. I think that's a good point. They're not. I feel like our politicians are just so out of touch with the American people.
Absolutely,
left, right, anything.
100%.
I just feel like they're, they go to Washington and they've lost their mind, man. They surrounded by other politicians, and in real life isn't in Washington, man. It's not how the real world works at all. So I've also been seeing on Facebook, man. Here's something I want to ask you about. We didn't talk about this, but it just not hit me. People are always saying impeach Biden or Biden's not my president. Like, I guess that some of that's be expected because people feel butthurt. Just to be honest, it's just they feel butthurt about. But like, how do you feel about that, man? Like, is that just a is it just the overflow of hatred and division that we're seeing right now, man?
Yeah, well, a lot of it is, like Biden's not my president, comes from what has happened the last 4 years.
Right.
Because Trump got trashed so hard. Like I said, dude, for 4 years, you sat and heard that we were racist. People who supported Trump, like me, we were racist. We were degenerates. We're white trash. We are stupid. And your president's not our president. That is, Trump's not my president. How many times did you hear that? 1,000 times. I heard it 1,000 times. And so part of that now is people are butthurt because their guy didn't win. But for the last 4 years, that's all you heard. You were accused because you like Trump and you believe in a lot of the things that he's pushing. Somebody finally spoke to a portion of America that hadn't been talked to by a politician in a long time. And that's why Trump won.
So
go ahead.
I mean, so what do we do to remedy it, man? Like, what could Biden do that would heal that? What could any other politician do that could heal that?
Here's what I really think about Biden, okay?
Sure.
If Biden holds to who Biden has always been, okay, which is a very centrist Democrat. He's very middle of the road.
Yeah.
Or he has been his whole career, okay? If he can hold to that and not allow the left fringe of, the Squad, AOC, those guys, dictate what he does, Biden has a shot, I think, to bring everybody together. Now, I got my own personal problems with Biden, okay, as far as things that I've seen over the years. But if Biden behaves the way that Biden has as a politician, which is really right down the middle, because most Americans, dude, agree. Just like me, for example, a lot of people are like me who socially, if there's a lot of Christians who have problems with some of the social issues out there, and I get that because that's their belief. I get it. But at the end of the day, they don't hate those people. That's just against the religion. It goes against what they believe, but they don't hate those people. Biden has a chance to be a unifying president if he will, but he cannot let those extreme parts of the party dictate what he does. And you want to know who became the most powerful person in the Senate after all this? You know who the most powerful? Joe Manchin.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Manchin. Because Joe Manchin is really a Democrat like Biden has been.
Right.
And he is a Democrat. He's a centrist. He's a Democrat like people in Eastern Kentucky and people who are in Middle America can relate to. Like, I like Joe Manchin. Hell, I would vote for Joe Manchin.
He's Glenn Martin Hammond Democrat.
Yes, he really is. But he has become the most powerful person in the Senate because they 100%, because it's a 50-50 split, right? Kamala breaks the tie.
Put this up. I want
Which one? Which one?
Debbie Brown.
Okay. All right. So Debbie Brown says Joe will never be the president, will only last for a short term. The vice president will take his position. He isn't physical or mentally able to hold office.
I think that Joe Biden has put all that to rest, man. If you haven't seen the debates and seen his speeches, then I don't know. I can't watch them for you, but he put those all to rest. He carried himself very well with a lot of class. He was able to hold his own, at least, in my opinion. He won the debates. Of course, that's just because of my own leanings, absolutely. But he didn't look like a fool out there trying to debate Trump, if at all. Do you agree with that, Jimmy?
Yes, but I think it shows that they were smart to keep him in the basement. We made fun of that, or I made fun of that.
It was a great
but
move.
They were smart, dude. Yeah. They won the freaking election because they did that. And Biden has actually, like, Debbie, I understand where you're coming from, but I actually somewhat disagree because since Biden has been elected, I've listened to Biden talk a lot, and he has been very strong in some of the things he's saying. Again, I don't necessarily agree with all of it. He was kissing Bernie Sanders' ass the other day, and that just drives me crazy. But he has been very strong in the way that he's talked and the things that he said. So all of us, we have no choice. He's the president. So all those people who feel like me have no choice but to say, okay, this sucks, but let's just see what this guy can do.
The thing is, man, it was a false narrative that was put forward about the mental decline.
No, he's been sharp.
He's a sharp guy. And I think it actually backfired on the Republicans a lot. They drew this picture of Biden being this old feeble man who couldn't keep up, sentences together, couldn't talk, couldn't think on the fly. And then he came out and debated and held his own. If he didn't win the debate, he at least held his own in both the debates. And I think it really showed his mental acumen and his ability to, to be able to continue to do the things that he always has done. He's got the mental capacity. It's still there. So that's a false narrative that's been put to sleep as far as I'm concerned. As far as
I don't disagree with him.
As far as physically, I mean, he's 78 years old. He could die.
Yeah,
he's
old.
Years old. Yeah.
Poor guy's old. I have to put this up here because I laughed when I saw it. Serious question for you guys. Do you think Nancy has her own private liquor stash? Yes, 100%.
I think they all do. I think every one of those
do. I think every one of them
Republicans all got their own liquor stash.
Let me get JD on record right now about your boy Mitch McConnell doing the right thing, dude. As much as we all hate McConnell,
I'll tell you who did the right thing. It was Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, Lindsey did too.
Did not expect that, man. He got up and said, I asked for, they told me there was fraudulent or dead people voting in Arizona. I said, show me 10. They couldn't show me one. They said there was, this fraud going on in Georgia. I said, show me 10. They couldn't show me one. That was his speech before they voted the other night. And I was surprised to death to see Lindsey Graham stand up and say that. And because he has been the most adamant Trump supporter in the Senate, period. Even when McConnell would back away from the issues, Lindsey Graham was out there getting sound bites in the newspapers and online. So to see those guys step up and do the right thing, man, was really not only shocking but refreshing. I'm glad to see it, man. Honestly.
Let me put this up here too, and then let me make fun of JD for just a minute. Very proud of you, cousin JD. What you're saying, I'm agreeing with you. LOL. So, JD, did you ever think you would see? Did you ever think you would see an evening where more people agreed with you, including me, on this podcast where we do this?
Oh, this is it. This is going to be it.
This is the high point. We need to stop right here. Yeah. What about VP Pence?
Hey, listen to me. That guy showed a real backbone.
He sure
I'm
did.
going to tell you right now. He showed some real character and some real class.
And he's another one that has been staunchly loyal to Trump. Like,
Absolutely.
just loyal.
I don't agree with a lot of his politics. I do not. But to see him stand up and do the right thing when our country needed him to do it, and to take the fire, from the president and from the supporters, he stood up and done the right thing. He absolutely did. Patty, you're right on point. Vice President Pence stood up and done his constitutional duty just the way he's supposed to do it.
And the saddest part for me, JD, honestly, and really, a lot of people hated Trump, including you. And, you would give Trump his due when he did something that you agreed with. I mean, I always respected you for that. But because Trump really did, in my opinion, do a lot of really good things. He accomplished a whole lot of things in his time as president, but he has completely screwed that.
Yeah.
He will never be remembered for any of those things. And that's the part where I was telling you the other night, dude, I can't even talk about this because I'm trying to, really absorb this and take it in, because I didn't want it to come from an emotional place. I wanted it to come from a place of thought. Right, right here, this is funny. I hate agreeing with JD. It makes me weak in my knees. Me too.
I don't want you. I think people have the wrong idea of me, man. I'm not some crazy, nonsensical liberal out there. Now, I think I have a lot of liberal tendencies, but I will give the people on the right their due when they're credit.
JD's always been fair. He really has. He's always been fair. So, do you think Pence will run for president, JD?
I think he probably will. Yeah,
he set himself up pretty well to be able to, and he is a more traditional Republican.
Yeah,
and even in those debates with Kamala, he handled himself very well. He was very respectful to her. Whereas that had been Trump, dude. Pence was respectful to her. Like, that was a good debate. Even
she had to call him out a couple times because I'm talking.
Remember, she did. Yeah, well, of course she did. But that's what they always do, dude, in those debates. And especially if you're you're the incumbent, you kind of feel like you can do that. Trump, like that first debate with Trump and Biden was ridiculous.
The shit shows with that one.
Yeah, on both parts. But no, I mean, like I said, JD, I think at the end of the day, Trump really, whether Trump did it or not, like I don't 100% agree that Trump said anything that day that incited what happened. But what I do agree with is the fact that the lead up to that, basically making people believe that election could be turned and that he could still be president, was BS.
Right.
And that's the part.
The lead up. That's the one. That's the whole point. That's where he incited the.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. So anyway, thank everybody for agreeing with me. I'm amazing. Let's go.
Hey, I got a show for you though. I want to end it on a good note. This has been a great discussion, and I want to thank everybody in the chat for chiming in. It makes these discussions a whole lot better. JD and I, we feel like we were pretty good at this now, but at the same time, with you guys being a part of it really and being interactive, we appreciate that. And there were a lot of great points made in here tonight, JD.
Yeah, and we want to talk about things they want to hear about.
Sure.
Right? So when you guys give us a comment or a question, it lets us to direct the conversation in a way that is hopefully interesting. Because if you have a question you want us to battle back and forth on, somebody else played up too. All right, go ahead.
All right. Let me ask you guys, do you think race played a role in Biden's choice? I'm assuming she's meaning for VP.
Well, I can tell you that there were numerous people. I'm sure it did, yeah. But I think Kamala Harris, whether you like her or not, she's very well qualified. So I don't think it was the determining factor. I think it absolutely played a part in it, but I don't think it was the determining factor.
One of the things that the Democratic Party does very well is inclusion, right? That's one of the things that they do the best is I think there probably were some more other qualified candidates. But Kamala was a prosecutor. She had been a senator for a long time. She knows government. She's not a dumb lady. I can't stand her, but she is not a stupid woman. And the fact that she was a smart, black, intelligent woman
Didn't hurt.
Didn't hurt anything.
And I'll say this, I've actually now got a job, and I've got jobs in the past where I may not have been the most qualified person, but I was the right fit. And sometimes it's not about all the qualifications you can put on paper. Sometimes it's about having the right butt in the right seat. And they may not, be the guy with the degree necessarily. Maybe the guy, I'm on the community center board. I don't think it's because I went to my college experience. It's because I think a little bit different than some of those people on the board.
That's
and
right.
I bring a new perspective. And
that's right. And that's important.
So it's always, you can look at qualifications, and qualifications are great, but having the right person is more important than having the right qualification.
Yeah. And like I said, the fact that you had so much civil unrest earlier in the year, and to let America, especially Black America, see that you had a woman, number one, that's key, and then a Black woman, like I said, at that, who's very smart. Like I said, I can't stand her. Like, I can't stand to listen to her talk. But that doesn't mean that she's not a smart lady. And, I mean, she clearly is. Hell, she's vice president. So, she got her way up through there. You're not stupid. So, when you do that. But really, before the way I wanted to end it, Wells recommended a new show to me. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's called Goliath, and it's Billy Bob Thornton.
Okay.
And JD needs to check it out. I think JD
Billy Bob.
I love Billy Bob too, right? Ever since he did Bad Santa, he's been my favorite. I don't know,
that was it for me, man.
Yeah, but as far as that goes, but I think you'll dig it, JD. I think anybody watching here, if you haven't seen it, Goliath is a great show. Let me see right here what Michael said. Pollard have been booted from app stores. Oh yeah, I saw that. That's actually a good point because they.
So I feel like it's the same thing, man. It's the same thing that's going on. Because, all right, so let me get this out. We're talking about social media being a private entities, being private companies, and there are. But there are social media platforms out there. There are no holds barred. You can go on there and say whatever you want, however you want to say it, make any kind of claim. I think 4chan is one that's real big. But you know why nobody goes there? Because they're absolutely shit shows. You can't get any good information. It's a bunch of nonsense. And I think it's what Parlors, I haven't been over there. But I'm going to guess that Parlor is filled with all this conspiracy theory stuff, this right-wing nutcase stuff, man. And so I think Apple and all these other places are trying to do the right thing and keep people safe and not letting violence be incited, not letting people get worked up over things that aren't true. What do you think about that, Jimmy? I don't know.
Like I said, that's a slippery slope for me, dude. Like I said, it's one of those things where you're truly getting on. It's like we always say, what happens next? Okay. Yeah. You're taking conservative voices away. You take the apps away where conservatives can go. And if the people who are, like Apple don't agree with the stuff that's being said on those, and they deem it dangerous. When did Apple become the people who deem it dangerous?
They didn't, but they're the private company that gets the final decision on their products, man. So I think the opposite thing is this, though, man. So the government comes in and says, "Oh, you got to allow it." So now the government's deciding what the private company's rules are. Is that fair?
No, it's not, and that's the thing. It's not, and that's where the slippery slope is, dude. And it's so hard because our First Amendment rights as Americans, that's one of the biggest things. It's the, it allows us to do what we're doing here and have a reasonable discussion. And if anybody ever came and told me and you that we could not do this podcast because they didn't agree with what we said, that's BS, right? And the fact that, I don't know, dude, I just feel like you're getting on. I can understand right now because there's a chance that somebody could incite a civil war over some bullshit. And pardon my language, but just over some bullshit. That maybe tamping some of that down right now might not be a horrible idea, right? But long term, a lot of times when stuff like that gets tamped down, it don't come back. And
so other comment up, I disagree with how Apple works. I want to read that because I want to make a point about this. I disagree with how Apple works. They dictate how your app can work. They will tell you to add or remove functionality from your app. That isn't right. Here's your answer, Michael. Don't buy Apple products. If you don't like the way they do things, if it's enough to change that you disagree with that strongly, don't buy the products. They're a private company. If you feel that strongly about the way they do things, then you shouldn't buy the product. That's it. That's how you hurt people, man. If you don't like Walmart coming in your business, in your communities, and robbing the mom and pop stores, don't shop there. That's the only way I can tell. That's all I can tell you, man.
He said he's saying that as a developer.
Oh, okay. As a developer, that's over my head, bro.
Yeah. And like I said, makes it hard to work. But they're the guys who control that, right? So
they're raw, man.
Great ideas, Michael, and people who have identified something that say Apple's doing wrong or they don't like, and then they go and set up their own way to do that. That's what I'm saying. As far as I think it's dangerous to like split it, because what you're going to end up having is Twitter's going to be straight liberal, left wing. That's okay. Then you're going to have conservatives looking for a place to go, and are they going to keep shutting that down?
Right. And that's a great business opportunity for somebody.
Yeah, sounds like a good business opportunity to me. All right, so let me put up Kasdorf's here, and then JD and I'll wrap it up here. Before you leave, who do y'all have with the game tomorrow night? Tide or Buckeyes? JD?
I'm going to go with Tide, man. I just think they're too good. Although I was very impressed with Ryan Day and his Ohio State Buckeyes against Clemson. I just think Alabama's just going to be too much. Yeah,
I think Dabo Swinney gave Ohio State too much bulletin board material, and they came out with a purpose that night. Alabama's a little different thing. Alabama's a little different. And the ACC literally went 0-6, I think, in their bowl games. So the ACC wasn't near as strong as it appeared to be. All right, next question from Matt Brown. Jordan or LeBron? I'll take that one first. Jordan all the way.
I mean, I feel like they're just two different players, two different eras, man. I don't think why we got to – I don't feel the need to compare those two. I can enjoy both their game from their respective places of greatness.
I mean, that all sounds great, and your virtue signal answer there. Michael is the man. There will never be another Michael Jordan. I don't care who it is, and if anybody was going to come close, it was Black Mamba himself, Kobe Bryant. Period. And I like LeBron. Like, I respect LeBron's game, but no.
I gotta go, man. I got stuff to do. Hey, I've been a great talk. Good hanging out, Jimmy. Appreciate all the comments.
What? So you got to get out of here?
I gotta go, bro. I got stuff going on.
You ain't even. I gotta go. All right, guys. So remember, you can catch me and JD. Every Sunday. You can find. Of course, Eric's going to be posting all the social media stuff this week. You've got. You can find us on iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify. Of course, Podbean is where we launch from. You can also watch the show live, the replay live on YouTube and Facebook. And as we always end our show, from myself and from JD, no matter how bad your week's been, no matter how bad your day's going, if you just have bourbon, it always gets a little bit better. Talk to you guys next week.